Thank you very much. It's great to have Prime Minister Netanyahu with us today, a friend of mine for many years. And it's a real honor, I have to say. We're going to be discussing many things, among them peace between the Palestinians and Israel would be a fantastic achievement. And we are giving it an absolute go. I think there's a good chance that it could happen. Most people would say there's no chance whatsoever. I actually think with the capability of Bibi and, frankly, the other side, I really think we have a chance. I think Israel would like to see it, and I think the Palestinians would like to see it. And I can tell you that the Trump administration would like to see it. So we're working very hard on it. We'll see what happens. Historically, people say it can't happen. I say it can happen. But I just want to say, Mr. Prime Minister, it's an honor to have you. Thank you.
Great to see you.
Thank you
Great
very
to
much.
see you. Thank you. Mr. President, it's great to see you again. I want to say that under your leadership, the alliance between America and Israel has never been stronger, never been deeper. I can say this in ways that people see and in ways that they don't see. So I want to thank you for that. Equally, I look forward to discussing with you how we can address together what you rightly call is the terrible nuclear deal with Iran and how to roll back Iran's growing aggression in the region, especially in Syria. As you said, we will discuss the way we can seize the opportunity for peace between Israel and the Palestinians and between Israel and the Arab world. I think these things go together, and we look forward to talking about how we can advance both. Finally, we're going to be speaking tomorrow at the UN. And I want to say that under President Trump, America's position towards Israel at the UN has been unequivocal, it's been strong, it's got both clarity and conviction. And I want to thank you on behalf of the people of Israel and Israel's many friends around the world. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much.
And also, as you well know, this is the Jewish New Year this week. So I want to wish you, the Jewish community of America, Jews everywhere, people everywhere, Shana Tova, happy, healthy New Year. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
President, I would like to say, Mr. President, do you plan to stay in the Iranian nuclear deal?
You'll see very soon.
Sorry?
You'll be seeing very soon.
When will you be proposing your plan? When will you be proposing the ultimate deal plan?
We're talking about it constantly. Constantly. We're talking about plans constantly. You'll see.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great afternoon. We'll see you soon.
There you have President Trump, along with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, meeting on the sidelines of the 2017 United Nations General Assembly, the UNGA. These are key meetings for President Trump, of course, when the world descends here in New York. And tomorrow, President Trump will make his debut addressing the Joint Assembly here in New York. Let's break down some of the big topics ahead of him in some of these sideline meetings and also what we expect to hear from President Trump in those key remarks to get tomorrow. Joining me now in Washington, D.C., Joe Cirincione. He's the president of the Plowshares Fund, also a member of the Council on Foreign Relations. Joe, thanks so much for being with us.
My pleasure, Amna.
So let's start right there with the president's one of the president's first meetings here in New York. He was tweeting about it earlier today, saying he was very much looking forward to that meeting with President Netanyahu and talked about some of the hopes that he has for Middle East peace. There are a lot of key meetings he's holding here on the sidelines of the UNGA. Which stand out to you as among the most important right now for President Trump?
Well, this is probably the most important for him because it gets right to the core of the issue of the Iran deal. President Netanyahu has a very clear agenda. He wants to break the deal. He's never liked the deal. He was personally opposed to it. He personally opposed President Obama, so that's another sort of opposition issue that he and President Trump have in common, their opposition to President Obama. And he's going to propose that the administration either just pull out of the deal or insist on an amendment to the deal. The amendment is impossible. This deal is, of course, a 7-nation deal. It isn't up to the United States just to do it. And pulling out, most military and intelligence officials believe that would be disastrous, both here and in the United States. The Jewish press today in Israel is filled with articles by defense and intelligence officials urging President Netanyahu not to break the deal, arguing that this is in Israel's national security interest. But it appears that the two men are determined to do it. This could be the most significant national security decision of the young Trump administration.
And of course, Mr. Trump has been talking about wanting to do this for a while, but saying, as he did there, that you will see very soon what that decision is. He's not the only one who's weighing in on this right now. The Iranian President Hassan Rouhani said in an interview with CNN a little bit earlier, and I think we have his text to show you now, that exiting such an agreement would carry a high cost for the United States of America. And I do not believe Americans would be willing to pay such a high cost for something that will be useless for them. What do you make of his remarks?
Well, that is actually the argument that most objective intelligence and military specialists are arguing. You don't want to pull out of a deal that is stopping Iran from getting the bomb unless you have a better plan for how to stop Iran from getting the bomb. And this administration does not. It just doesn't like this deal. In other words, we now have Iran in an iron cage. They have ripped out most of their nuclear complex, 2/3 of their centrifuges, gotten rid of the plutonium reactor, exported almost all the uranium gas they had. We are in a much better position here than we had them. If you break out of this deal, this is what Rouhani may be referring to, it actually frees Iran from the cage. Iran will be fine. They'll be freed of the restrictions, and nobody else is going to come with us. So there's no chance that you'd get sanctions reimposed on Iran. It's really the worst of all possible worlds. I think that's what Rouhani is trying to say, rather than, I wouldn't interpret that as a threat. I think that's just a reality. We would lose in the strategic balance if we break this deal.
And Joe, do I understand correctly you're actually meeting with Rouhani and some members of his team during their visit here to New York?
I am. I'm about to get on the train and go up to New York, where I'll have dinner with President Rouhani. I met him in 2005 in Tehran when he was the nuclear negotiator, and I had dinner with him again in 2015 and 2016 in New York. These are meetings of a small number of, well, I guess you might call us, senior thought leaders, foundation presidents, et cetera, and part of the round of meetings President Rouhani's having. It's a brief dinner, but I'm looking forward to it tonight.
So maybe you can give us some insight here. How are the president's comments, President Trump's comments, being interpreted by leaders in Iran right now? Do they see it as saber rattling, or is there a threat of something else?
Oh, no, they see it as saber rattling. They take very real that the president wants to break out of this deal, doesn't want to certify Iran is complying with the deal, and it's clearly a political act. I mean, by all available information, what the International Atomic Energy Agency says, what our own intelligence agencies say, Iran is complying with the deal. They are not cheating. There are no violations. Rock solid. This is why President Trump's own national intelligence team is telling him to stay in the deal. But the president has indicated he wants to he wants to pull out, and he'll probably make that decision on October 14th. So if you're in Iran's shoes, you go, well, what comes next? He breaks out of the deal, then what? And they fear that he's going to block with Saudi Arabia and with Israel and have more military interventions against Iran. Remember, in the Middle East, Iran really is engaged in some nefarious behavior. They are backing Assad, the president of Syria, in a brutal destruction of the Syrian people. And Saudi Arabia is bombing Yemen civilians in an attempt to push back Iran forces in Yemen. So there are real conflicts going on. None of these are vital to U.S. national security interests. The fear is that Trump breaking this deal is going to drag us deeper into these Middle East wars.
So let's talk a little bit about what President Trump has said so far, because while his big remarks, prepared remarks, will be tomorrow morning, he's already spoken a little bit about how he views America's place in the world, about how he views the United Nations. He's changed his tone somewhat. Candidate Trump really blasted the UN as weak and incompetent. But this morning, in a meeting with other member nations here in New York about the future of the UN, he had this to say. Let's take a listen.
I applaud the Secretary General for laying out a vision to reform the United Nations so that it better serves the people we all represent. We support your efforts to look across the entire system and to find ways the United Nations can better and be better at development, management, peace, and security. The United Nations was founded on truly noble goals. These include affirming the dignity and worth of the human person and striving for international peace. We encourage the Secretary General to fully use his authority to cut through the bureaucracy, reform outdated systems, and make firm decisions to advance the UN's core mission. Further, we encourage all member states to look at ways to take bold stands at the United Nations with an eye toward changing business as usual and not being beholden to ways of the past which were not working.
So, Joe, President Trump has not been shy about redefining America's role when it comes to international alliances. You look at sort of the new realignment within NATO. You look at what happened with the withdrawal from the Paris Climate Accord. What do you make of America's place now, how President Trump will position us in the United Nations in his speech tomorrow?
U.S. credibility and our ability to influence events around the world is in decline. And you've seen this already with the reaction of our closest allies in Europe, who are saying they're going to have to find their own way. You see it in South Korea, who is faced with this growing North Korean threat, has a president of the United States who wants to kill the South Korean-U.S. trade agreement. So what everybody is looking to this week, to this speech by the president before the General Assembly, to understand what does it mean that the president wants to put America first? What exactly does that play out? And what you just heard is some, I think, reassuring words from the president. You know, that he's a more peaceful, emphasizing the love concept that he often states. However, I expect that in his speech tomorrow to be coupled with very strong words on North Korea and Iran. We don't have a real diplomatic strategy for solving the differences with Iran. We don't have a diplomatic strategy for solving the crisis with North Korea. What they're banking on so far is toughness, is trying to be so tough, trying to threaten military action in the hopes that other countries will take actions, for example, China, to cut off support for the North Korean regime. I don't think that's going anywhere, so I'm afraid, and this is what many people are going to be listening for tomorrow, I'm afraid we're seeing a slide towards war, both in Northeast Asia with Korea and in the Middle East with Iran. That's why a lot of the delegates listening tomorrow are going to be on edge, looking for something to hang on to, something to indicate that there's more of a strategy here than tweets and bluster.
So, Joe, what will you be listening for tomorrow? Because that phrase, a sort of a slide towards war, is very alarming for a lot of people. What are you going to be listening for the president to say that you think could help to calm some of the anxiety there?
Well, the administration over the weekend is clearly indicating that there are military options. I don't know what those are. No, there are things you could do with North Korea, but there are no military solutions. If you strike North Korea is not Syria, they're going to strike back. So, and that could unleash the most catastrophic war the world has seen since the end of World War II. This would be a big, big, bloody war. So what you're looking for is some edge. If they do have a strategy to act tough and then open the diplomatic door, we're going to be looking for that. Is there an opening? One of the things you really would like to see this week in New York is the Secretary of State Tillerson meeting with the North Korean foreign minister, who will be at the UN. He's a very accomplished, been in leadership positions for 20 years in North Korea. A meeting with him could be that kind of crack, just to open the door to see if we could get talks going that could lead to real negotiations. That's what a lot of people are going to be looking for. I wouldn't hold my breath.
Finally, before we let you go, I'll ask you about our current state of war, America's longest war now in Afghanistan. We know President Trump is going to be meeting on the sidelines with Afghan President Ashraf Ghani. Is there any indication or any hope that you hold that he may address some of that future for Afghanistan in his speech tomorrow?
He will hold out hope. He will indicate our perseverance. Our military is now making plans to stay in Afghanistan indefinitely. We've dropped all talk of leaving. There are no plans to leave. We've just slightly increased the troop levels. There's no military or political solution in sight. There's very little hope for resolving the war in Afghanistan anytime soon.
Joe Cirincione in our Washington, D.C. bureau. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks to all of you for watching as well. If you want to get some more background on the president's remarks tomorrow, head over to abcnews.com at any time. And don't forget, we will have his entire remarks to the United Nations General Assembly live here tomorrow morning. Thanks for watching for now. I'm Amna Nawaz, and I'll see you back here soon.